Hi, welcome to my channel. I thought today that I would talk about something that I noticed it's a common question, and I also noticed it seemed like it's kind of like a booming business right now, especially being that probably 98% of women, when breastfeeding at some point during the time that they're breastfeeding, will feel that their milk is not enough for the baby. Now, in most cases, that isn't the problem, but it doesn't stop a mom from feeling like possibly she doesn't have enough milk, and that's because we can't see. When we breastfeed, we can't, unless we pump, we can't see how much milk is coming out. And even if we pump, we're not emptying the breast. A pump doesn't tend to empty the breast, just because you know breast milk is released by a hormone, and a pump just doesn't do it. So a lot of times there's a little bit of milk left over in the breast. So unless we pump, we don't really have any idea of how much milk the baby's getting. And so we only have tools, such as diaper output and babies gaining weight, and we're always looking for about a half an ounce to an ounce a day for a baby to gain, especially in those first, I want to say probably the first year, but it slows down like later into the year. And then some babies are slow at the beginning and then they gain at the end. So breastfeeding, it's a little bit different. It's not like formula feeding, and the weight gain is different. But anyways, the topic is what people use, such as lactation cookies, fenugreek, mother's milk tea, oatmeal. You Google it and you're going to come up with a zillion different recipes of lactation cookies. You'll hear everybody's opinions about fenugreek and also the lactation cookies, which tend to be made with oatmeal. Another thing that people swear by is oatmeal, just plain straight oatmeal. And of all those things, there's no science to back up the claim. So there's no proof that those things increase milk supply. In fact, they even say it can have a placebo effect, which most of us know what that means. It's kind of like where we feel like it's helping, but that's just because we want it to help, kind of thing, or we really think that it's supposed to help, and so it gives us a placebo effect. Again, no science backs up these things, but there are moms that will swear by them. I've had moms say cranberry juice, it helped her. Oatmeal was a big one. I remember, eating oatmeal every day, and I felt like it helped my milk supply. But it could just be the fact that I'm eating nutritiously or whatever. Or again, it could be a placebo effect, or maybe it does have some effect on milk supply and science has not proven it. It's just there's no real proof. And my biggest concern with that is that the amount of money that people are making off of these things, the lactation cookies themselves, it's outrageous. The price is outrageous. And really, if anything, it's the oatmeal that is what people are selling, and that's what they're putting in the cookie, and you can make your own. And it's recommend some IBCLCs will say, you know what, if you want to do lactation cookies, find a recipe and make it yourself. It's so much cheaper that way. But again, there's no science behind it. There's no proof. Now, with milk supply, there are cases that go against, that can cause your milk to decrease. And so those are things that we focus on as breastfeeding specialists. You want to focus on the things that can decrease milk supply, and then give mom tools to increase milk supply that are actual science based. So these actually work. And the things that decrease milk supply are also science-based because they go against how milk is made, like how a mom produces milk. So basically, if your baby uses a pacifier a lot, this can cause a decrease in milk. And I'm not saying not to use a pacifier, but in some cases, babies like to use mom as a pacifier, and so mom will tend to try to get them on a regular pacifier. But the good thing about being a human pacifier is that it increases your milk. It keeps your milk supply strong. Now, to me, that's the most important in that first couple of months. And then during growth spurts, babies tend to be a lot more fussier. So during those time periods, as much as we would like to grab a pacifier, allowing them to breastfeed as much as they want boosts that milk supply. It keeps that milk supply going, and the baby is able to adjust it and increase it as the baby grows and needs more. But if we're putting a pacifier in because we're like, okay, well, we fed them and we've changed them and they're fine, here's a pacifier, it could affect our milk supply in the long run. Now, I'm not saying that with every case, and I'm not saying it as far as like not using a pacifier at all, because I would be the first one to say, if you fed them, if you've changed their diaper, they've slept, whatever, or maybe they haven't slept, but you just don't, some babies just cry. That's just their outlet. But it is good to ask yourself, okay, could it be a growth spurt? Could they be growing? If you can rule out a growth spurt, if you can say this isn't a growth spurt, this is just them crying, whatever the case. Again, I don't have anything against pacifiers. I think they're great, but I think that the use of them, the overuse of them can cause, it definitely can cause low milk supply. Now, I'm looking at, whenever I do a video, I always research the information to make sure that what I know is still the most accurate information. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be something more accurate that comes out or came out yesterday or last week, but I try to pull out from reliable sources, which is very important. When you're going online and you're researching something, you want to go to reliable sources. You don't want to just go to any website and get that information. You want to go to websites that are they have lactation specialists, they have the information, and it's going to be accurate. So I'm just reading off of some of the things that I pulled up, and the question was asked to an IBCLC, will eating lactation cookies increase my milk supply? So I'm just kind of like going based on her response, as far as like, okay, let me look at this and see what her response was and see if it's still, accurate, if what I, am about to tell you is accurate, still accurate. So again, the most important thing is understanding what real low milk supply looks like and what you're going to see when there really is a medical problem. Now, things that can cause a drop in milk production can be if mom is separated from baby a lot. So maybe you go back to work and you're not breastfeeding on demand as much, and you're not pumping in place of those feedings. It could be if you supplement with formula. So if you are giving a bottle, especially if they're not like set bottles, like every day at 10 a.m. you give a bottle, the body doesn't know. Any milk that's left in the breast, the body thinks it doesn't need. So if you skip a feeding, it's going to think you don't need that feeding, and it will stop making milk for that feeding. So that's why supplementing with formula is you hear so much from IBCLCs and lactation specialists and breastfeeding peer counselors about, not supplementing unless you absolutely have to, because it does affect your milk supply if you're not, you know, especially being consistent with it. And a lot of moms will say, okay, well, I breastfeed first and then I follow with a bottle. And that's, unless your baby really has weight gain problems and diaper output is not good, then you really, by supplementing, you're still sabotaging your supply, even if you breastfeed and then you follow up with a bottle. Because if they suck on an empty breast, it tells the body we needed more, and the body adjusts within 24 hours. It adjusts. And a baby, whether they're if they're hungry, it takes your body a certain amount of time to recognize that it's full. And so with the baby, if they're really hungry, they'll suck down everything and then spit up half of it because they overate. So just because they take a bottle after they've breastfed on you does not mean that they're not getting enough from you. And if anything, that again can sabotage in another way. The baby realizes how fast the milk can come through a bottle, and the sucking is different from the breast. And so this can affect your baby wanting to breastfeed. Yeah, they have a lot of bottles out there that are supposedly like the breast, but there's just nothing that's going to be the same as breastfeeding. It's just, a way that people make money. It's a way that they can sell something and people make money. And, that's great if you can find a bottle that is similar to, sucking is similar, which makes it easier to transition back and forth. Nothing wrong with supplementing with formula, but that can affect a mom's milk supply, as well as breast surgeries, anatomical issues like medical problems like thrush, tongue tie, or a cleft palate. So unless your baby has any of these things that you're aware of, the doctor confirms, or maybe an IBCLC looks at and says, yeah, that your baby has a cleft palate or tongue tie or thrush or whatever. Sometimes even their nose is stuffy, or when they breastfeed, they cry because their stomach hurts a little bit. And what's happening is when they're eating, the stomach is digesting the food, and so it's pushing the food out, and that can cause a little bit of a bellyache at first. So that can cause a baby to be a little bit upset. So basically the question about whether you need galactagogues, and galactagog is a medical term for anything that increases milk supply. The most natural thing people use is fenugreek, and again, there's really no science behind it, but a lot of women will swear by fenugreek, and a lot of IBCLCs or breastfeeding peers, maybe not so much of a breastfeeding peer, but a CLC, they might recommend trying fenugreek. A lot of moms have said they felt like that worked. Again, the same with oatmeal and the lactation cookies and so forth. But do they truly increase milk supply? There's no science to prove that they do. And so therefore, we don't say, okay, go out and get mother's milk tea or whatever. If you choose to do so, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But there's just no science behind it. And the real truth of the matter is, if you're concerned about milk supply, and to me, it should always be validated. If a mother feels that her milk supply is low, it should always be validated, meaning we should listen to you and give you tools to increase your milk supply and to know really if there is a milk supply issue. So if you feel there is a milk supply issue, you have to find out what could be the reason. And then also pumping and breastfeeding more will increase your milk supply. Unless there is another issue going on that's decreasing milk, that should increase. So, I mean, like a medical reason that could be decreasing the milk. Otherwise, if it's just something that maybe you're giving more bottles, or the pacifier, you know, is being overused. Those things can be fixed by power pumping more, breastfeeding more, because that's what it is. It's a supply and demand. The more the breast is demanded from, the more it will start to make. And that's kind of like the best tool, you know, that I can give you, is understanding exactly how the breast works so that you can work with it and have the tool to increase your milk supply. You can do this by hand expression. You do not need a electric pump. It does make it easier, but you do not have to have an electric pump. And the baby is the best to use, because more milk is going to be pulled from the breast if the baby is on. And again, that's if there's no medical issues or no medical reasons for decreasing of milk supply. And I think I will talk more about what some of those reasons are, to kind of give moms some idea of what could be causing their milk supply if they truly do have a milk supply issue. So I think that's all I'm going to talk about today. I know there's a couple other topics that I would like to discuss, and hopefully I'll get that video up soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this answers any questions you might have. And if you have any other questions or comments, please leave them below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and felt like it answered your question the way that you wanted it to. And I will see you guys again in my next video.